Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the Quick Guides. On today's show, we're gonna take a look at making the 442. The 442 was a common formation back in the 90s, probably until about 2000, and till England got eliminated in the 2010 World Cup by a 4-2-3-1 Germany side. Fabio Capello back then, I think he was criticized for using something like an outdated 4-4-2. But the thing about the 4-4-2 is this: it is probably one of the most balanced formations that you can use to protect the whole width of the pitch. And currently, some sides are using the 4-4-2, and they've used various forms of the 4-4-2. If you look at Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid, they use one for kind of a 4-4-2. Then you got Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid, they use the 4-4-2. Leicester City also used the 4-4-2, and so did Watford. Uh, these are all clubs that have used the 4-4-2 in various forms. Uh, the most famous 4-4-2 would probably be AC Milan's 4-4-2 under Arrigo Sacchi. So the the 4-4-2 was very popular at a certain point in time, and it is a system that is heavily reliant on teamwork, work rate, and bravery. You need a team that is willing to work hard to support both the defense and the attack. And one of the central midfielders, well, he's expected to go upfield and will need to act to support the forward pair. And this is the thing about the 4-4-2. The 4-4-2 in itself is a system that is good in protecting the width of the pitch, but is not very good at controlling certain areas of the pitch. It's it's got this gap between defense and midfield, and a gap between midfield and attack. These are two zones on the pitch that the 4-4-2 desperately needs to protect. You can't claim that one 4-4-2 is superior to another because many teams have done it differently. Leicester was one team that used the 4-4-2 with side midfielders who cut inside. Arrigo Sacchi's 4-4-2 had a double pivot attack in midfield. So you can go away and come up with a system that could work. And in order for you to do that, you have to ensure that you control the final third. That's the most important part of the pitch that you need to control. And it's easily one of the harder areas on the pitch to control. There are several ways we can do this. One of the ways we can do this is to have a DLF on support or a defensive forward combination up front that will drop deep with two side midfielders who have been given the instruction to cut inside, sit narrower, and basically act as attacking playmakers from the flank. You could opt to use an attacking playmaker, or you could use the wide midfielder who has customizable play instructions. The challenge here is still the center of that pitch, where the indicated by the circle. You still need to get somebody to act as a ball carrier for the central midfielders. And this has always been the challenge, and I've seen lots of tactics. This system could work, the one on indicated on the screen. However, you have to pay a lot of attention during a match for second ball transitions. Easily, when I'm talking about these second ball transitions, it literally means you have to be looking out for when you're attacking, and if you lose control of the ball in the final third, do one of your players win it back? The defense is clearing a ball from second type of second ball transition could occur when the goalkeeper is doing a goal kick for it, and he hoofs the ball up and he gets to midfield. There's always going to be somebody, the players are going to challenge for the ball. Who wins the second ball after that? So you're going to spend a lot of time looking at this, and you'll be adjusting your defensive line, your roles and duties in even shape, just to make sure that your players are in the right positions at the right time. So your 4-4-2 will see some variation over the course of a season, and that's the beauty about the 4-4-2. The 4-4-2 can be played in so many ways. You can turn a 4-4-2 into a 4-4-1-1. The 4-4-2 can easily look like a 4-2-4 in attack, or a 4-2-3-1 in attack, or a 4-1-4-1. So it all depends on the roles and duties you choose. When we want to make a good 4-4-2, we're gonna have to understand the weaknesses of the 4-4-2. Here, we have to remember that they got a flat back four, right? So if the ball moves anywhere into this zone here, if the MCD comes up to cover, chances are CD is going to come and help him. That opens you up, and it's very easy for a team that's playing with a 4-2-3-1 to pull you apart because they've got four players in the attack attacking you here. And this is something that we have to bear in mind when we set up a 4-4-2. Okay. The other thing I've seen on the forum sometimes, people love their attacking fullbacks. So when they bomb forward, when the fullback and the winger attack and the fullback starts to move down the flanks, what do you get then? You get something like this. All right. You get an entire zone here that opens up. When this entire zone opens up, then again you have another weakness. So the 4-4-2 in itself is basically a jack of all trades, a master of none. It covers the pitch very well, but it doesn't defend the pitch very well in all areas. And you need to understand this and to compensate for it whenever you're making a tactic. So what can we do? The first thing we need to do is we need to protect the flanks. So you have two options. Either you keep, if you want to have attacking fullbacks bombing down the flanks, then these guys can never, the side midfielders can never be wingers on attack. They should be, they should be playing as wide midfielders on support. If you want to have a winger on attack, then he should also be supported by a MCD. So this MCD is covering the zone and helping the fullback on support, because the fullback on support is going to come out all the way up to the midfield to support the zone when the winger goes on to attack, either down the flanks or cutting inside. Finally, on the opposite flank, we've got a wide midfielder on support. He will come this way while the fullback on attack goes down the flank. If you want to lend further support, the wide midfielder support should have cut inside and sit narrower. This way, he will be in this zone. This allows you to control this zone as well. The other thing I like to do in my systems is I'm looking at MCAs. Because you have a wide midfielder support, it allows you to have an MCA that can charge into this zone. And this gives you control over this zone with an MCD on support and fullback on support. When you lose the ball and the ball transitions across midfield, your wide midfielder on support will be in a perfect position to come back to support. Your MCA will track back, your fullback will track back. You still have some semblance of a defensive solidity, because what you want to see when the ball transitions here is the players taking up these positions. They have to be moving back. So they will be moving. You want to be able to see your players moving back to protect the zones. Because you have an MCD, your MCD is always going to be dropping deep to help the defense out. And you have your flat back four, and you've already solidified your defense. So the key really in making a solid 4-4-2 lies in controlling two zones. The first zone you want to control is this zone, the defensive zone, and the other zone is the attacking zone, which is why whenever I make my 4-4-2s, I usually have an MCA on attack. This central midfielder could also be my playmaker, and I will opt to have a winger on attack to stretch the defense. This gives me the opportunity to launch balls from the MCA down to the winger on attack and crossing it back for a deep line forward and support who's charging in late. With the WMS, with the wide midfielder on support over here, and a fullback on attack also charging into the box. So we have the option of crossing to be delivered from here. The alternative attack pattern that could emerge is when you have the ball with the MCD, for example. The MCD will pass it to the MCA, and we will be looking for central attack patterns where they look for the DLF when support is dropping deep. Okay, if he gets the ball, then you got a WMS will come forward. You got the W fullback that's over here. Quite commonly, the ball will cross to him, this guy will charge in, this guy will come in, this guy will come in, this guy will go in late, and boom, you've got a overloaded box as well. So there are a lot of variations you can get from here, but you gotta be spotting your transitions. You gotta be looking at transitions. The key here, and I keep telling this to everyone, is learn how to spot the second ball. Learn how to watch for winning the second ball, because the second ball is all about different transition points. It's a key actually to identifying a transition. So you're looking for deep. You're looking for defenders who are defending. They win the ball and then they clear the ball. The ball goes in the air. You intercept the ball, you keep the ball, you won the second ball. Okay, stuff like they have an attack and it breaks down. Your player has tackled, the ball goes loose. That's the second ball. Who wins the second ball? It has to be you. If it's you, then you have enough support players there to feed off the second ball. So here you're looking at the second ball because the second ball is going to be key in understanding whether your defensive line is too deep, your defensive line is too high, or whether your closing down settings need to be modified slightly. So now let's take a look at the game itself and the tactic. I find it ironic that I'm doing a 4-4-2 because it's part of the coaching that I get people to do is I always give them a 4-4-2 exercise to do. Why? Because once you understand the intricacies of making a 4-4-2, generally you end up making really good tactics because the 4-4-2 is all about how do I control zones. It's very basic. If you do a 4-3-1-2, then you only have to worry about the fullbacks, right? You don't have to worry about the wings because it automatically kind of helps you score goals. Uh, the, Here you have a system where you need to think about how am I going to get the ball into the box, how am I going to get people to get onto the end of the crosses, how am I going to defend the flanks, how do I control the zones. So here in my 4-4-2, I've gone very simple. The setup is very, very simple based on what I just covered earlier. Alright, so here we have a white midfielder on support. He's been given, so I'll start with the instructions from the back. Let's just keep it simple. Alright, I have a wing back on attack, playing few risky passes. He will dribble more, run wide with ball cross more often, cross on byline, get further forward. Now, the whole goal here is this guy is going to be one of the early transition players. The moment the ball gets to the halfway line, I'm expecting to see this wing back bomb into this area. The other thing I'm looking for is a lot of close support, as we move the ball through the transition points. I'm looking at AP, attacking playmaker, to control this zone, bomb forward, and I've also given him get further forward and more direct passes. So this will encourage him to be slightly further forward in transitions. I don't need him to be too close to the central midfielder here. On the right flank, we have a fullback on support. He is going to be playing dribble less, passes shorter, few risky passes. That way, we ensure that the ball doesn't get bombed down the flank too early. However, there's another variation of this tactic that you could also make where you actually, I call it my ICBM fullbacks, where I tell my fullbacks to play risky passes, play direct. And when I do that, normally I have a winger on attack here. So the fullback on support, he's actually bombing balls down the line. Many variations of the 4-4-2. So don't think that this is the only version. I have like 5 versions of the 4-4-2. In my book, there's another version of the 4-4-2. And it's really up to what kind of plays you have. So here I'm making a basic 4-4-2 that's all about domination. Uh, it will score a fair bit of goals, and it works on the principle that we want to have the width coming from one wing back here. This wing back is going to produce width. The winger on the right will provide width once you control the midfield. So we will not overcommit ourselves because we know the weaknesses of the 4-4-2. We know that we don't want to give up this space, so we are controlling the ball as much as possible and controlling the zones as much as possible. So here we have a group, and then the rest of the central defenders, they bulk basic. We don't do anything different. Here in midfield, we have a white midfielder that's been told to close down more and sit narrow and cut inside with the ball and dribble less. So essentially what I want to do is I want to have a medium block. I want to have these guys blocking the flanks and tackling hard. This guy, and on the right flank, the same thing with the other winger. He's been told to close down more. other instructions we left them alone because we don't want to. I don't want to make it too complicated a system to play. Here in the middle, we've got get further forward and more direct passes on the attacking playmaker. And for this chap, well, hold position close down more. If you wanted to, you could probably put play less risky passes. But here again, it all depends on the players that you have at your disposal. Up front, high block, dribble less, close down much more. And preferably, you might want to have tackle harder as well. Here we have tackle harder and close down much more. So these are the settings that I have for my 4-4-2. In terms of the team instructions, now this gets interesting. All right. Now, I am not the sort of player that will stick to one set of team instructions because I tend to adjust with the game. So the team instructions that I would set up for my system would really depend on what I'm trying to get. If I wanna, if I want to have certain players playing on more divergent mentalities, I'll go to structured. But here with this system, I'm gonna stick to control and fluid. This way, I get more players involved in transitions, and my defensive line is normal. I'll use the offside trap. I'll play with a slightly higher tempo. I will definitely add the width because I want my players to stretch the pitch and play wider. But I will also observe because there's a tipping point. You don't want it. Sometimes when you get too wide, you leave pockets of space in between the channels, and you when that happens, you might find it is your backline gets too, exposed too easily. So this I have to watch during the game to understand whether or not we are overcommitting ourselves. In terms of the instructions here, play our defense. Is okay. It's not vital that you use this shout. Pass into space. We're getting to the interesting bit now. Okay, here, pass into space, I will use in conjunction with, if I wanted to go structured, I'll go pass into space. Because then, when I go with pass into space, what will happen is the attacking playmaker will be moving forward. There'll be space for him to attack. And I have an advanced forward who's testing the line. And I have a wingback on attack as well. So when I go structured, these three players are going to be the ones that get triggered the most. So if I'm using structured, these three players also are going to be a lot more attacking in mentality. So they're going to start taking a lot more risks. And I don't mind that if I'm looking to draw a team out, for example. So if I have a team that's sitting back, maybe I want to draw them out. So I have option A, draw them out. I'll play structured. I keep my normal defensive line, and then I will try and use the space to my advantage. Option B, play control fluid and don't pass into space. Instead, I look to work ball into box. Then I am, but this work ball into box, you have to remember, okay, it's not a shot I like to use in the 4-4-2, but this will allow them to, move the ball around and try and carve out opportunities by attacking centrally. Once again, if I find that we are wasting too much time doing this, I'll take it off. Because work ball into box is a shout that I use some of the time and I don't use some of the time. It's one of those shots that can be good for you. However, in a system like this where I want my width and I want my crosses to come in, maybe not. I will use it situationally. So basically, the shouts I'll go for in the game as a starting set of shouts is higher tempo, fairly wide, a normal defensive line, use the offside trap, and play out the defense. The pass into space and work ball into box will only be used situationally. Pass into space will be used when I want to go into a structured shape, and work ball into box will only be used if I wanted to attack a bit more centrally, and if I wanted to reduce the amount of crosses I'm making in the game, or if I want to retain possession, for example, and I'm comfortable with the match. So what am I actually looking for? What am I trying to spot in the game? I'm looking out to see how I transition from midfield into attack. At this point in time, when my ball crosses over to the midfield line, I'm looking for my attacking playmaker who's in circle to see how far he has progressed towards the grid 14, which is the golden zone. Then I'm also looking for my wingback on attack. I'm waiting to see whether he bombs down the flank, and I'm also looking to see whether the white midfield on support who's next to them is cutting inside to lend support to Panik when he does drive through the middle. Here, my team is getting ready for another transition. They've moved from that earlier transition. The playmaker has already pushed the ball all the way to the right flank towards Dani Alves, who is the fullback on support. And here, I'm also looking to see that my wide midfielders are moving up. My central midfielder is going to start charging centrally and supporting everybody. The whole goal here is for me to spot where my fullbacks are. The moment I see my fullbacks have crossed the halfway line, and I'm actually going to be quite happy because I know that in an attacking sense of the word, I've got my width and I've got control of the central area of the pitch, which is what I was after. The 4-4-2 as a concept is pretty easy for most people to understand. Executing it in FM is an entirely different matter. I've noticed a lot of people seem to struggle with the system, and generally it is down to them not actually spotting transitions properly and where they're winning or losing the second ball. Here, the goal has to be that you get first up, have the right kind of players. Look, England played a 4-4-2, I remember, with Steve McManaman and David Beckham. I mean, honestly, they don't tackle. So you know the wingers are going to be totally out of the game. So you gotta think like that as well. I mean, you gotta look at your team and go, yeah, you don't put an MLMR in and say, okay, fine, I want them to go get me goals. No, the modern 4-4-2 is very different from the fourth classic 4-4-2. The classic wingers are dead. Okay, you're not gonna find a classic winger in the game anymore. All right, you're gonna find the classic wingers have now converted into AMs. All right, more like inside forwards in today's modern game. The classic winger has died. So what we need to find now are more like defensive wingers. Wingers who can tackle, wingers who can cross, wingers who can pass the ball, and probably wingers who can actually cut inside. So you're looking for wingers who can add a lot more. You need a team that's got a high work rate, high teamwork ratings, and they must be brave. They have to get into the challenge. If you have any side midfielders who have low bravery, low composure, they're not going to be able to play in the system. It is a system I have honestly struggled to make Gloucester use effectively. Why? My LLM side just doesn't have what it takes to play a 4-4-2. I have tried, and I tell you something, without the right players, the central midfield part where I'm trying to defend, it always opens up. So when if you want to make a really good 4-4-2, you need to have good players. These are players that have to be good on one-on-one situations. Now that is a challenge with the 4-4-2. The 4-4-2 requires you to find players who can pass the ball, players who can players who know what to do with the ball when they get the ball. They don't have the luxury of support from other players. If you look at the 4-2-3-1, the 4-2-3-1, you put two hardworking central midfielders and bomb the ball to the opposite flank. That's it. You've got a 90% chance to be in a dangerous position to score a goal. You play a 5-3-2, you got five men at the back. Three, all you need to do is make sure that you hold solid, counter structured, bomb the ball up, which chances are you might get a goal. The 4-4-2 that is not overloaded on anywhere on the pitch. So you have to create the overload situation yourself. And in order for that to happen, individual players must be good. This is why the 4-4-2 has become one of the more harder systems for people to find long-term success with in the game and even in real life. The 4-4-2 has become displaced in modern football because uh, the teams that are successful with the 4-4-2s invariably end up being hardworking, high work rate teams who are willing to die for the ball 99.99% of the time. And when they are not allowed to play their game, when they are suffocated, the 4-4-2s fall apart. So this is what you have to bear in mind when you play the 4-4-2. When you make your 4-4-2 tactic, you have to spend a lot of time and you have to adjust as the game flies. This is not the only version of the 4-4-2. I could easily take this 4-4-2 and say, okay, fine, I'm having a risky game. I need to draw the players out more. Maybe I want to stretch them even more. I could turn this winger on support into a winger on attack. Then in that case, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this winger on attack, I have to pay a lot of attention to this flank now because I can't overexpose myself. However, when this winger on attack goes up, am I going to stop using this guy as an attacking playmaker? No, I still will play him as an attacking playmaker. Maybe a central midfielder attack and remove the dribble button so that he doesn't lose the ball with this guy up front, because if this guy bombs forward, he dribbles, loses the ball, I open this entire zone up. So you gotta be thinking like this when you want to unlock sides with your 4-4-2. This has been a very long, quick tactic 4-4-2. It's the longest one ever because I do truly love the 4-4-2. However, Getting it to work well will be a challenge for most of you, and I hope that you guys have fun trying to make your 442s and come up with other variations. And for my patrons on the Discord channel, please share with me all the variations that you've made, because I guarantee you there are so many variations of this game. It will be impressive to see the different types of 442s people come up with. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for watching the show, to the patrons who continue to support my channel. And if you have any other questions, you know where to find me. You can always look me up on Twitter at BusterNet or on my website at addictedtofm.com. So you guys take care, have fun with this tactic. Bye bye.